This is Spiritual Souls Sliding Sideways, Chapter 19, Choosing Reality. What I believe, what I feel, reality's truth, reality's pain. There was a time in my life when I did not have time to face misery. I did not have time to feel depressed. Life was such a demand on my time that I could only think about what was next. I tried to stay happy and positive. I did not want to allow myself the time to stop and understand how overwhelmed I was. I did not have the time to think and process my life. Life demanded my full attention. Life demanded that I push ahead until I found what I was looking for. I felt ready to take it all on. I was young and I was ready to take charge. I could control what I needed to. I could hold on to control if I thought hard enough. I was not going to allow anything to bring me down. I was the master of my life. I felt I could manifest my destiny. Everything depended on my happiness, and everything would fall apart if I did not stay happy. The stresses and pressures were present, and I was going to overcome every challenge I had to face. I had my mood swings, and I was going to stay up more than I was down. I knew that if I lost control, I would end up repeating my past. Without the necessary control I needed, I convinced myself that I would not be able to trust myself. I had to trust myself, but my desire to be free felt stronger than my need for healthy discipline. My mind was not disciplined. My mind lived from moment to moment in total freedom. My freedom led to my downfall. My freedom was full of good times and bad times, but my freedom fought to keep the times good. I did not want to be happy in life. I wanted to seek it out and guarantee my happiness. The mind is an amazing thing. The folds we create in our minds can lead to habits of neglect and ignorance. My only goal was happiness. Even when I tried to hide my joy, I hurt myself out of selfishness. I hurt myself out of a desire for personal happiness, prioritizing my own needs above all else. I learned how unhealthy my need to stay happy was. I was suppressing my ability to experience my emotions in their natural state. I was trying to control how I felt every second of the day. I had grown used to relishing happiness in my mind without considering others. My mind would continue to focus on the need for my own happiness. The problem with trying to control our emotions is that we were never meant to always be in control. We can experience our emotions in a better way, but when we take control, we should expect ups and downs. I think of emotions like waves on the spiritual ocean. People should feel emotions, not categorize, manipulate, or control them. The intention was for emotions to exist in a free state. Taking control of that free state means we want to control something that is meant to be free. Emotions should mature, not be controlled. Trying to control our emotions leads to ups and downs. This is the natural emotional effect. The natural emotional effect is what emotions should be. Depending on the situation, we were supposed to adjust to a situation as we faced it. We were not made to pre-plan our emotions to get them to act as we think they should. Natural emotional responses are messages in a bottle. We do rarely want to open that bottle, but we should. When we control our thoughts and emotions too much, all we are doing is creating a pressure cooker. Controlling emotions builds up pressure and hides our true feelings. The more backstock we create in ourselves, the more pressure builds. When we feel in control of our emotions and thoughts, our bodies try to self-correct. The self-correction the body is trying to do is every natural response we should have. The more control we have over our emotions and thoughts, the more we take our bodies out of natural sync. The body should have sync, feeling natural emotions every day. Controlling our daily emotions can make it harder to return to our natural responses. The bounce back to a normal emotional body response can be very bad. When we bounce back emotionally, we can lose control over how our minds react to life. At a certain time in my life, I was sure that what I was doing for control was natural and healthy. I was rewiring myself, and I was going to force my mind to listen because it was what I needed. I found it hard to let my emotions and thoughts flow naturally. I had no idea how important emotional and mental maturity was for mature, healthy growth. I believed that I could force anything. I determined to master my emotional and mental self-adjustment. I needed control even though my mind resisted. I did not have time for natural adjustments because I felt I needed to pull myself together right away. I felt I needed to force my adjustments and I would eventually catch up with myself later. I thought I would adjust to what I needed to do now, and later I would have the understanding I needed. The mind remembers everything. Our subconscious remembers everything, even when our conscious mind does not. We maintain a constant record of our lives. The record of our lives is an ongoing memory of which we are not aware. The mind bases everything on this memory and relies on memory stored universally. Memory determines how we should live and how we should act. Denying or changing our memories can lead to conflict. This struggle happens when changed memories clash with our true selves. The mind stays used to what we have done and how long we have done it. When we want to change our minds, we need to consider how long we have subjected our minds to the same patterns. The mind can adjust and adapt, but it struggles to change old habits. These patterns have become our comfort zones. I tried to pop my own comfort bubble, and by doing this, I placed my mind in a place where I overwhelmed it with change. Changing how you cook your favorite food after 5 years may feel strange. Changing your process can throw your mind out of sync with the natural process it is accustomed to. How long does it take for the mind to adapt and change to new patterns? The mind struggles to change when our habits bring us joy or pleasure. Even when we want to change to be healthier in some way, the mind may be more comfortable with an unhealthy pattern. An unhealthy pattern is a mental addiction to known comforts and happiness. Once the mind finds what it is comfortable with, it will not want to give it up. The human mind can easily settle into unhealthy and harmful habits. Not changing unhealthy patterns reveals how comfortable we are with being unhealthy. The more we accept unhealthy habits, the less we will welcome healthy changes. If we attempt to make a change that feels wrong, our minds will reject even the healthiest changes. The mind only thrives when there is a positive emotional reward. When change is not rewarding, then change will fail. We are very attached to our natural emotions, even when we try to control them. The mind will always stay connected to our natural level of emotional maturity. We can try to force inner maturity. When we try to force ourselves to feel what we do not feel and adapt to what we do not like, we will find resistance. The mind will always resist even when we are forcing it to push forward and be happy. We can try to fool ourselves, but the mind is its own form of natural processing. We can always try to force our process and push for what we need to do, but all we are doing is twisting the process. Forcing the mind to do what it resists leads to more stress and frustration. We can adjust to anything in this life with time. If we rush the natural process, we invite mood swings as we adjust over time. Pushing ourselves up leads to mood swings. Then we return to our natural state. Natural existence is like throwing a ball in the air. You can throw it up, but it will always come back down to the ground. Its natural resting place. We can force happiness, but we will always find a place where we feel grounded again. The more we force happiness, the greater the fall. The higher we throw the ball, the greater the distance down it must travel. We would be better if we could move the ground with the ball on it up. We call raising the ground with the ball on it natural maturity. We live in a society that forces everything for the sake of productivity. We live in a society that forces us to survive instead of living. If we lived naturally, schools would teach everyone how to grow and mature. The world does not care about our needs to grow and mature. The world only cares about what it takes to keep supply and demand going. Life's cold truth is simple. There's never enough time to truly mature. In the end, it's all about live or die. The extremes of life do not make time for natural maturity. We often overlook human growth and maturity even when constructing a new prison. The true problem in this life is that we all lack true spiritual maturity. True spiritual maturity would help us grow in ways that would help us find our place in this fallen world. When we force spiritual maturity, that is when we will find the greatest mood swings. We can try to force things, but life finds its own balance. Spiritual mood swings can lead to feelings of deep enlightenment or demonic destruction. Mood swings come from forced emotional, spiritual, and mental maturity. Reality brings us back to our natural level of maturity. The longer we fool ourselves, the more we will become maladjusted to life. Forcing ourselves to feel joy or happiness doesn't last. We always go back to how we felt before. I understand the world does not leave time to adjust to stresses and worldly pressures. We need to ask the question about our true existence on the inside. We need to ask, how does my inside match my outside? Every situation in life requires a certain level of maturity. We base maturity on our ability to adjust to any given situation with civility. Maturity helps us pick the best solutions for life's many problems. If we force maturity, then we are forcing ourselves into a place of maturity that is not real. What is not real will always be the illusion of a false self-created reality. We often fool ourselves into believing that we can make an illusion real. The illusion will always fade no matter how many times we recreate it. When illusions fade, we should stay in and take the time to mature in the reality that remains. When we keep leaving our natural reality is when we never mature. The more we leave our natural reality for a fake one, the more it begins to make us crazy. We can keep trying to force an illusion to be reality while trying to avoid reality to stay happy. Avoiding reality leads to confusion. This confusion makes us question why we can't stay in the illusion. The greater the illusion we create, the less we live in reality. The less we live in reality, the more we live in the illusion. The more we live in the illusion, the more we live in fantasy. The more we live in fantasy, the more we live in denial. Living in fantasy leads to continued delusion. The greater the denial, the more we will disconnect from reality. The greater the disconnect from reality, the more we live within the illusions. The more we live in the illusions, the less likely we are to recognize our true reality. True reality is our home base and where we will feel grounded. The longer we avoid being grounded, the sadder we will feel when we return to our true state. Avoiding our natural state for too long can lead to a harsh return. This sudden shift often feels overwhelming and makes us feel insane. If we allow illusions to become our unnatural place of reality, then we have lost touch with reality. When we lose touch with reality, we have then created a false reality as our foundation. When we create a false reality as a foundation, we will find there comes a time when we cannot face reality at all. When reality confronts us, we may struggle to return to what is our true reality. This struggle can bring emotional, mental, and spiritual depression and anxiety. I tried to live in a state of illusion. I tried to master the art of self-deception. I know that the more I deceived myself, the greater the mood swings were. We can lock in illusions daily. We feel unstable whenever our self-illusions break down. The breakdown happens when something reminds us of reality. We can avoid mood swings when we face our reality. Our reality reflects our true feelings about everything. Our true feelings about everything may originate from a place of limited maturity. When we face our lesser maturity, we will find the need to run back to our illusions. When we want to run back to our illusions, that is when we become delusional. Through the many mistakes I made in my delusion, I found that it is better to ground myself in reality. The greater the illusion, the greater the ego, the greater the narcissism. I can understand why anyone would choose to force themselves to be stronger. I understand what it means to need to perform. The need to perform in reality is to force our delusions upon reality. I understand the price we pay for living a life of delusions. The mind can refuse to cooperate with self-created delusions. We can find ourselves in some heavy mood swings when the mind refuses. We often feel frustrated when our minds won't cooperate. We try to force our minds to behave a certain way, but it doesn't work. We can feel frustrated with our minds for not helping us achieve the sense of confidence we desire. Mood swings happen when we push ourselves too hard. We often struggle to accept our true reality. How likely is it that we never matured because we focused only on survival? What hinders maturity? Stress, pressure, and responsibility can delay maturity, especially when experienced early in life. We can be a 70-year-old 7-year-old. When did we stop growing mature? We stop maturing anytime we decide who we are is not enough to survive in this reality. When we believe we are not enough to survive in this reality, we will try to force ourselves to adapt. When we force ourselves to adapt, we stop maturing. When we choose to be mature from the ground up, we will have fewer mood swings. If we have been lost in delusions for a long time, returning to reality can cause mood swings. Trying to get back to the ground causes long mood swings. The mind can adjust to going up and down so much that being grounded can become very hard. The patterns that the mind creates can become a pattern that adjusts to needing mood swings. When we adjust to mood swings, we face the challenge of not forcing ourselves to be grounded. If we force ourselves to be grounded, we then create a situation that still stops us from maturing. Anytime we force ourselves to do anything, we stop maturing. We need to face reality. Our reality can be that we are not facing reality. The hardest part of avoiding reality is that when we finally do face it, we might forget what it even is. The truth to finding our real reality is when we stop trying to be what we are not. We are not from who we are trying to be. That is when we can find ourselves again. We can let go of all we believe for a blank space. When we find ourselves in a blank space is when we invite in our true emotions. The blank space we are creating by giving up all we believe is how we make space for our true selves to return. We cannot return to ourselves when we are creating false realities and illusions. The blank space we create gets rid of all feelings and thoughts. The blank space is so we will not manipulate what we want the blank space to be. We allow in our core to the blank space without willing anything into our blank space. When we empty ourselves out, we discover our true nature. We can keep living a forced life, or we can find an empty space. In that space, we can rediscover our true selves. We can run our whole lives while living in delusions, but there will always be our core calling us back. We can fight against what is natural, but there will always be a place that we instinctively seek. We must realize the mind will conform over time to the practice of good or evil. Time is the key element to which we must adhere. We might try to control how long something takes, but we only cheat ourselves. We overlook the natural growth of things when we impose our will. The more the mind adjusts to delusions, the more the mind will create patterns for delusions. What is normal is who we are without everything except ourselves. What is not normal is when we adapt ourselves to this life against our will. Do we have a life without forcing life to be the way we want it to be? The further we get away from ourselves, the greater the mood swings. The greater the mood swings, the greater the delusions. We can choose to give up all our beliefs and find ourselves in an empty space. We need to stay in this empty space for as long as we can. Our minds will try to leave this empty space and return to the patterns and beliefs they have grown used to. The mind can return to unhealthy patterns and beliefs if it has become accustomed to them. We must always try to get back to a blank space, even if it means giving up everything we believe in daily. What matters most is being able to be who we are. If we choose not to give up what we believe, then what we are doing is reinforcing what we already believe. When we reinforce what we already believe, we are less likely to find ourselves again. We can hold on to our delusions for some time, but letting go can feel strange and unhealthy. I surrender my daily beliefs so I can challenge my processes of belief. If something is true, it will not matter what I believe, because what is true is not based on my belief system. What is real does not require my belief system. We might think life runs on our beliefs, but the truth remains true, no matter what we believe. What is real will always be real, whether we believe it or not. Surrendering our belief systems daily will not change what is real. I can surrender what I believe daily, because then I can focus on what is real. Once I surrender what I believe, I do not create reality. I am not in control of what is real and not real. My belief system does not matter. What matters is that I believe in what is real. Once I remove my ever-changing, flawed belief systems, I care about what is real so much that I do not worry if my beliefs get shattered daily. I would rather know the truth than live in a fake reality that I believe is real. When I surrender my reality, I create a blank space for things that hold universal truth. I do not want to make reality up when I can have a universal reality that is true. Do we think our belief systems make something real because we believe? Do we believe that believing will make what is not real become real? We can understand what is real when we acknowledge it after we stop believing. I can close my eyes and stop believing in my TV, but it is likely my TV will still be there with my eyes closed. My belief system will not make my TV more real or less real. My choice to surrender belief is my road to getting back to reality. If I continue to make reality up, I will never be able to see what is real because I am making reality up as I choose. The more I surrender, the less my mood swings. The less my mood swings, the more I can surrender. The more I surrender, the more I find out how much my belief systems don't matter. The more I realize how unimportant my beliefs are, the easier it is to let go of them. I begin to see what is real, whether I'm involved or not. We can choose to walk into a world full of forced delusions. We can choose to live in a reality that will never bend to our will. We can choose to believe something exists because we believe it does. We can try to force life to be in our image. I would rather live in the image of God. I would rather live in a reality that is still real. When I surrender all, I believe that is real. I want to see what is real after I surrender all I believe in and find my blank space.